Hi, welcome to a new episode in the Internet Surfer, hosting the most horror and creepiest stories from Reddit. Please don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy.
Why am I so scared to live? What is the limiting belief at play here? Seeking advice. A horror story from Reddit.com.
28, female. Childhood emotional neglect has made me shrink and make myself small in terms of life. I am scared to try new things, scared to go out, worried I might be judged by people outside. I rarely go out willingly. I don't use my time to do things that a person my age can do. New things, new hobbies, new friends, nothing. My parents always used to fight, verbal and also physical at times. There was extraordinarily little to no affection shown to me and my younger sibling, but loads of criticism and judgment. I was supposed to tell my father what my mother was saying and tell my mom what my father was saying, basically be a messenger. My mother used to talk to me about all her marital issues and cry. Many things that are little and normal were never done in our house. No appreciation, no acknowledgement for any effort, no dinners together. Constant screaming, lashing out, and blaming each other. I have self-image issues, scared of people judging me, scared to be myself. I isolate myself alone in my room, so I don't have to entail unfamiliar situations. I had a mental breakdown when I was 15. Started drinking every day, cutting myself. Didn't go to school for 2 months straight. My parents found out and they were good to me and to each other for the next 2 months. Once I healed, it got back to how it was. All of this did something for me. It dulled my spirit in such a way that, even after almost a decade of experiencing that emotional pain, I am not able to pull myself out of it. Something in me tells me that I am not this person. I am bigger than this fear, and that if it were for no childhood trauma, I would be a different, more active, more risk-taking person. I am scared I will just waste my life and my healthy years in this slump. I am away from home now. What is this limiting belief that makes me so scared?
Fear of falling. Risking falling, when you know there's not going to be anyone to pick you up afterward, is incredibly difficult. Parents are supposed to make us feel safe, feel as though if we fall, they will pick us up and dust us off and give us security again. We were supposed to be instilled with a feeling that if we go for adventure and find misadventure, that it was all just an adventure all the same. Somehow finding it in yourself to seek adventure and sureness in yourself to pick up if it turns out bad is the hurdle. Having a safe base to return to as a kid allows you to build safely on experiences, learn new things and try things out without worrying that you will come to irreversible harm. I also lacked a safe place to return to if I made a mistake or got hurt. I would usually be screamed at by one/both parents. Usually, my mother would also include casual little digs about how I couldn't possibly know myself as well as she knows me, and that if I left the safety of my tiny little world then some disaster would happen, and she would be inconvenienced by having to come help me. My father encouraged me a bit more in terms of adventurousness, but still had a pretty explosive temper and I would often be punished by both parents for simple, age-appropriate mishaps. Honestly, lockdown sets me back a lot, and I have a tendency to seek approval of people who also make me feel stupid, I think, because this feels paradoxically safe. Ended up in a loose group of people in 2020 to about last year who had their own issues and things just weren't healthy. It takes a lot to overwrite bad programming like this, but recently I'm starting to realize I am not a failure, not stupid, and that people like and respect me for exactly who I am. Good luck, OP. I hope things work out for you. I know it's not easy. I feel this, I've described as I'm scared to exist, or it is bad to exist. Luckily, I've had some breaks recently after nearly a year of exceedingly difficult therapy. For me it's a working model of self and other as bad. So deeper than a core belief? So, It makes this all-encompassing feeling of the world and everyone as a scary place, and new things feel scary because I don't even feel like I trust or have myself to fall back on, or that others have my back. I'm sorry you are experiencing this, and it sounds like you've been through a lot. You are bigger than this feeling and state you have now. Living becomes easier the more you do it. A lot of us grew up with judgmental parents with dysfunctional relationships and were left fairly isolated. Just as the fear of life reduces the more you go outside, try new things, and live your life, it grows the more you're trapped and isolated. So, this self-perpetuating cycle gets started where you don't want to do things because you're afraid, and you're afraid because you never do things. But the good thing is that it can be changed. If you can find the courage to try even through the fear, as time goes on, you will find the fear will reduce. Not immediately or all at once, but it does. And then someday you realize the one of today is far more capable and confident than you of only a year or two ago. It isn't easy, but you're not stuck the way you are if it makes you unhappy. It will get better, but you do have to make that decision to do what scares you despite the anxiety. It's hard, and scary, but it's absolutely worth it. What is this limiting belief that makes me so scared? I think it's the belief that you will get hurt and abused again the way you already were as a child. And to lose the fear of living, you must understand that what you endured as a child were exceptional circumstances. That means that what happened to you is not the norm. Your perception of what might happen to you in the future is based on what you have experienced in the past, and in your case that is abuse. So now you're afraid of being hurt again, even though most people are actually pretty nice or simply indifferent and would never intentionally hurt you. As a child, you're also particularly vulnerable to emotional neglect and abuse because you neither have a fully grounded understanding of healthy relationships yet nor the power to act on this understanding. A huge pile of love for you. You're allowed to exist, allowed to take space. You are yourself and you have only one body, and one mind for your whole lifetime. See, it didn't help to hate it until now. You may be willing to try to be a friend of them. If it's hard to show friendship or love to the person you are today, imagine doing so for the little girl you were. Show her empathy. You're not different from this little girl, you deserve empathy as well. I know it's extremely hard. But please believe that you are not the issue here. The little girl you were was not the issue. Maybe it was the family dynamics, maybe it was the inability of the adults around you, but this little girl could have done things differently. She never had a chance to receive what she needed, to begin with. Now, you say you want to stay in your room. It's something I did a lot too. I think I wanted to stop time, and avoid growing up, to give my parents a chance to be the parents I needed. I start to be able to build my self-esteem and do things when I realized that it was never an option, because, as I said, we could have done things differently, the results would have been the same anyway. What helped me a lot to build self-esteem is reading many books from Pema Chodron. I felt allowed to exist. Taking time to write about the family dynamics through decades, connecting the dots, to realize that they need me to be the scapegoat in their dysfunctional dynamic, and so, I could never win. I'm not only afraid to fail, but so afraid to be successful. Doing things. Taking a course, do sport. Even if you're bad, you still did it and it's better than nothing. Distancing myself from my family. Stop comparing yourself with others, compare yourself today, with the you of 6 months ago, but not to others. You do not have the same history, the same capabilities. It's not fair to compare yourself to someone else. Learning to say no. No is not something against others, but something we are doing for us, and for the relationship. Of course it took like 5 years, and I'm far from perfect, still have this weird feeling sometimes and I'm addicted to various things. But I feel at last like I'm driving my life, most of the time, instead of being a victim of the events, if it makes sense. Also, everyone is different and will have different things that work for them, at various stages, so you have to make your own journey, see what is working or not for you at the moment, and so on. I remember telling my therapist this exact fear. She's a somatic therapist. She guaranteed me that my father would not die if I let go of this need to watch for him or start to look after myself. Can't believe how real that fear of his death felt. If it weren't for her ability to rationalize that I needed that guarantee in order to do the work I must do, I wouldn't have been able to achieve this. My recommendation would be to find someone you trust first and see if they're able to help you with assuring that you can also let go of the fear in order to do what's needed for yourself. Thank you so much for typing or journaling. I really totally felt connected with your response in both comments. I really appreciate your insights and vulnerability. Your therapist sounds wonderful. A friend has been recommending somatic therapy to me for years, actually. I really need to find someone local. Yes, the fear is so real, right? I find it frustrating how intangible it is, though, despite being so vivid. Like, for me there's no singular rule I can break that will cause their doom, it could be anything. I thankfully do have a great therapist who I trust. I'm not sure why he's not been able to reassure me enough to let go of the fear, though. It feels like even though I cognitively know/believe/understand that it's not my responsibility, there are emotional parts of myself that just refuse to believe it. I'm not giving up though. Slowly chipping away, lol. Oh, I guess a somatic specialist is exactly the kind of therapist to help bridge that gap between cognition and emotion. Okay, prioritizing that, thank you. Thank you for the conversation. It's a pleasure sharing and talking with people who really understand, and it's often the only time I'll externalize my thoughts in writing these days. I've started saving screenshots of my own comments as a kind of digital diary, because I'm too fatigued to write a journal for its own sake. Wishing you all the best with your therapy and healing, and thank you again for the chat. Her most effective form of control is care as control. She smothers people with care, but it's always on her terms and rarely the kind of care the person needs. In my case, it's her trying to fix me, and infantilizing me in ways that I feel guilty rejecting. I relate so much to this. Smothering people with care as a way to control them. And yet your body understands that it doesn't come from a place of love necessarily, but control. This sends a confusing message to your brain because on one hand you're trying to convince yourself, but mom does such and such for me, she loves me, and on the other, but something feels off. This isn't love, this is control. This is mom infantilizing me. Is there another term other than infantilizing for this sort of behavior? Being shallowly but manipulatively caring towards another? Thanks for sharing your experience, BTW. It takes a lot of courage to do so, and I feel seen, smiley face. Yeah, I think you/self-therapy nailed it. Covert narcissism is the framework I use to approach my mother. I'm not sure she'd fill all the criteria for diagnosis, but certainly has many traits. Other similar or related topics to look into might be enmeshment, parent codependency, insecure attachment, disorganized attachment, or maybe just attachment styles in general, lol, learned helplessness, and, sorry in advance for how intense this terminology is, emotional incest, aka covert incest. By the way, I'm sorry I missed your comment until now. Apologies for the delayed response, and thank you for your kindness. I'm 35M. Growing up, we moved around a lot, so I was a perpetual outcast at school, the new kid, the small kid, the foreign kid, the kid with the weird name. My lack of friends was made worse by criticism from my parents, who often called me a loser and used me in their passive-aggressive disputes. I turned to alcohol and weed in my teens, which isolated me further. I never formed deep connections and slipped into depression as friends drifted away and substance abuse grew. I didn't feel like I was contributing anything to the world, no one cared about me, and I was just a waste of space. It got to a point where I seriously contemplated suicide. I happened to have a chance meeting with my dad, and for once, I was able to stand up to him and tell him what a POS he was. It didn't change his opinion, but it was therapeutic for me to get that off my chest. And somehow, it gave me a little spark to try and become organized. I started talking to a therapist. Slowly, I started putting my life back together. I'm still on this journey today, and there are difficulties, but I have more drive and purpose than I ever had before. And the feelings of worthlessness have faded away. So, with that said, I'd like to offer you some lessons learned. I'm so sorry that your parents weren't able to give you and your sibling the love that you should have gotten. But those were the circumstances you were born into, and you had no control over them. We can't always choose the circumstances we are dealt, but we can choose how we respond to them. A belief is just a thought. Our thoughts do not define who we are. We can choose whether we act on them or not. 1. Awareness. You've already shown that in your descriptions of your thoughts and fears. This is a level of self-awareness that most people don't have. 2. Take action. The goal here is to be consistent, so keep it small. Don't get hung up on whether you're good or bad at it. Progress over perfection. Get out of your place in the morning and go for a walk. If you can find a park or some nature park near you, great. Otherwise, walk to your nearest coffee shop, the bus stop. It doesn't matter where. Just get yourself outside of your current environment for a few minutes each day. Talk your feelings and concerns out with someone else. I would encourage you to talk to your sibling if you are comfortable enough opening up to them. If not, a therapist is also a good option. If that also doesn't work, then write in a journal or write on Reddit. Getting your thoughts out of your head is therapeutic in itself. Do something to get you out of your comfort zone. This could be learning a new skill, working out, taking a solo trip somewhere. Give yourself a different environment to experience, and your mind will automatically need to adjust to the new stimuli. It might sound like just distracting your mind, but that is kind of the point. The less time you have to sit and dwell in your thoughts, the less you will get upset and depressed over it. 3. Find motivation. You said it yourself in your post, something in me tells me that I am not this person, I am bigger than this fear. What is that something? For me, it was taking all the negative things my dad ever said about me and proving he was wrong. I wasn't going to be defined by his criticism. Find that motivation and let it drive you to effect the changes you want to see in yourself. Build discipline. Motivation is great, but it comes and goes. Discipline is what will carry you through those tough times when you lack motivation. This is building good habits, good routines, staying positive. You're probably rolling your eyes at this one, but with practice it can become a skill you can draw on. Apologies for turning this into an essay. Probably why I don't post LOL. Please understand you're not alone in this. Stay strong. You got this. I think we develop learned helplessness from enduring decades of operant conditioning. Back then we were helpless and powerless. Nothing we said or did stopped the abuse and neglect. It's like living in a perpetual double bind, no-win scenario. So, now we have unconscious breaks in our nervous system that keep us from activating our agency. There were these sad studies done with dogs where they got a shock they couldn't escape. After a while, the dogs stopped trying to escape. Then the researchers removed the barrier, and the dogs didn't try to escape. They had learned their agency didn't matter. The researchers had to take the dogs past the barrier repeatedly to condition their agency back. We're like those conditioned dogs. We have to recondition our brain and nervous system so that we can execute our agency now. It's a huge pain in the ass and takes a lot of repetition. As others have suggested, starting small helps. We have to do trivial things over and over again to give our brain and nervous system new experiences. We have to retrain ourselves. Some helpful resources. For stages of competence, how we level up our skills and knowledge. The Brain That Changes Itself by Deutsch on Neuroplasticity. This book really helped me understand how many repetitions it takes to condition ourselves. Mindset by Dweck on fixed mindset versus growth mindset. I try to consciously practice my growth mindset. Sean Aker, Wiring the Brain Towards Opportunity. I use his examples all the time to help wire my brain to look for opportunities instead of catastrophizing. Fear-setting activity helps me acknowledge my fears and find my agency. Especially useful exercise. I use it super often. Books by Stephen Porges and Deb Dana on polyvagal theory, regulation skills, and window of tolerance. Regulation is everything. My dysregulation is part of how my nervous system is stuck. I had to really train myself and expand my window of tolerance. Becoming Attached First Relationships and How They Shape Our Capacity to Love by Robert Caron on attachment theory. Our parents were totally upset about our attachment. The Myth of Normal, Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture by Dr. Gabor Mate and Daniel Mate. Chapter 7, The Tension Between Authenticity and Attachment helped me understand why it's so hard to be ourselves. Being authentic meant a break in attachment as children. I'm trying to build secure attachment with myself. I accept me, even if no one else does. I'm my own best friend. It helped me turn my caring talents towards myself. You're not alone in this frozen state. I have to overcome it every day, but it's slowly getting better the more I care for and nurture myself. I'm an experimenter and subject simultaneously. I'm experimenting on myself to move towards healing. I'm reconditioning my brain and nervous system towards my own advantage now. I know you can do it too. Hi OP, basically you're looking for one answer, but there are many. At first it might seem like a question about one condition, scared to live, but in those words are hiding many conditions and beliefs that were implemented by your parents. Such as, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to enjoy, doing what I like is a waste of time, I'll be hurt, other people are dangerous, and so on. So basically, what you're asking is what made you feel that way towards life, and to each belief there are a different answer, many times a few answers since we're not talking about one event but many events that happen throughout the years. I can tell you myself that I'm also struggling with this. The major emotion behind what is holding us back is fear. To be able to reach deep and pull out the beliefs that were formed by the unpleasant events, so as the first step is to be aware of them, you need to address what is causing the discomfort and go back in time. It's best to do with a therapist, because for me it's difficult to explain in one comment. If it's not possible, I would advise you to search how to do inner child work. I can tell you myself that I've discovered that to each such belief there was a part of me, deep in the subconscious, which believed my parents' words. I can tell myself as an adult as much as I want, I should live my life, but if the child in me who experienced an unpleasant even thought at some point, I hate my parent, but if they treat me like what I want doesn't matter, maybe they're right and it really doesn't matter, this thought will be stuck. I'll be unaware of it. Only when I address how I was wronged and how painful it was will I be able to see this thought. In my case, I also need to have a conversation with the inner child, because if she was told for years, what you want doesn't matter, she's not going to accept, it does matter. She needs to be convinced. Anyway, it's a process. I can't claim to have any advice since I'm really just at the beginning of realizing this reality, but I did take a few years of psychology in high school, and something that always stuck with me from that is the idea of fear of the unknown. That victims of abuse will feel a kind of comfort in the abusive situation because they kind of know the rules and how to navigate/survive their situation, or what is normal, your survival tactics, how to stay out of the spotlight and not draw attention to yourself. I guess what I'm trying to say is that stepping outside of your comfort zone involves navigating new situations, and your inner child thinks that involves having to start all over again in figuring out how to not rock the boat. Your inner child thinks inside comfort zone equals familiar, even if it's bad, while outside comfort zone equals exposing self to danger that you don't know how to protect yourself from yet, levels of danger that aren't really there. Hope that makes sense. Literally just joined Reddit last night to look at these chat rooms, so I'd how to word myself on here, but your story sounds so similar I really wanted to say something. What if it is not only about your limiting belief though, but the emotions underlying it? You have a ton of helpful stuff here related to your physical and mental situation, so I want to add to that by focusing on the emotions underlying it all, which is the key in my experience. How does it make you feel? Putting the story and situation to the side and being with the feelings, becoming the loving, caring parent you never had for yourself, your hurt inner child, welcoming in all the painful uncomfortable emotions and being with your hurt child. Trough it without conditions. Breathing is also a helpful tool. It is not easy, but worth it. You are not alone. All the best. I do have some videos about it on my yet that could maybe be helpful. You can discover the limiting beliefs behind your experience through neurotherapies, or trauma therapy. Most neurological trauma will be due to experiences or lack thereof. Emotional neglect is a serious offense because, when we are children/teens, our brains literally require nurture and attention from our parents. Some people will use EMDR protocol to overcome these issues, and some people will use brain spotting, a more narrowly focused tool used to soften and update our brain, and BOD, a device that can dial into your frequencies of suffering and literally clear the charge by rewiring the brain. Your fear of years passing you by is a real one. I wish I could have started these therapies sooner. My life is so much easier to get through now. The symptoms I was having from emotional neglect have mostly cleared up, and the people I choose to spend my time with have entirely shifted. Best wishes to you and your journey. That's exactly how I am. I'm 27 and I'm literally so scared of taking risks. I had a similar family dynamic plus an abusive relationship at 16. I drank, smoked, cut, and at one point my stepdad held a gun to my head. He took me to the psych ward because I wouldn't obey him. It messed me up. I'm terrified of taking risks and scared to be myself. I quit my high-paying management job due to stress and now have no health insurance. I ended my relationship a few days ago after I realized my partner of 7 years doesn't like my personality. My relationship isn't healthy, and I know I need help. I'm planning to move in with my mom to a different state. I'm terrified of starting a new job. I have major anxiety with driving, and I'm so attached to my ex. I keep having panic attacks and obsessive thoughts about my fears. What's the point of living when you fear everything? You can say yes and deal with your fears. Life is unfair, but it's your life, so take control. Try new things, start with new food. After that, ask someone to hang or find an event and ask around to see if anyone wants to go. Painting is a good hobby, just try to have fun and don't try for perfection. Who cares if people judge you? If someone judges you, they don't deserve your time. Facing your fears can't be any worse than the loneliness of not living. You deserve to live.
Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. The Internet Surfer on YouTube for more horror and scary stories.